back to Sueños to Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Victor Rios. Today we're talking about leadership that heals, leadership that builds belonging, and leadership that engages students through systems of purpose and motivation. Our guest is an incredible Principal Rahh, an educator and social entrepreneur, transforming attendance and engagement through culturally grounded school culture and innovative technology. Principal Rahh is a nationally recognized educational leader who has transformed school culture and student outcomes through a commitment to empowerment, innovation, and community-rooted leadership. Known as the revolutionary principal, he built thriving school environments across the country by centering student voice, cultivating powerful teacher teams, and creating systems that affirm the brilliance and potential of every young person. Principal Rahh draws on deep experience in urban education and uses culturally responsive practices, restorative approaches, and real-world learning models to elevate student success academically, socially, and emotionally. And I just want to mention, like, for years he's been doing very creative work, including J's for Days, which I want you to talk about because that's one of your classics. But his work has inspired countless teachers and principals to embrace a mindset of liberation, excellence, and purpose so that every student can rise, lead, and transform their community. Hey, welcome, Principal Rahh. It's an honor to have you here.
No, absolutely, man. It's an honor to be here, brother, to connect and see how we gonna revolutionize this system, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Speaking of system, man, a lot of times our young people that are most at promise
right.
are young people who maybe don't have the resources or the money. They end up not engaged in school.
Correct.
And I talk about engagement in school as empowerment.
Yeah.
Because if you're empowered, no matter what's going on, you're going to show up because you feel empowered by your teachers
Right.
and by your school. If you're disempowered, you're not going to want to show up to that place
Right.
because it's disempowering. It's taking away your dignity on a daily basis. It's taking away your motivation. You'd rather be out there with people that motivate you. So to turn school systems into systems that empower students,
Right.
not just engage them. Right now in the United States, research from the U.S. Department of Education shows that over 4.7 million students are chronically absent. That's 1 in 3 students. And in LA County, a 2025 report found that nearly 360,000 students are missing too much school, with Black students experiencing chronic absenteeism at around 40%. But here's the key. The research is clear that chronic absenteeism is not about laziness. It's about belonging, relevance, like I said, empowerment, stress, and connection. And Principal Rahh's work is grounded in this truth that connection increases attendance, belonging increases achievement.
Yep.
And just one more study here, Principal Rahh, because I want to hear your voice here.
Yeah.
Another study from Johns Hopkins University shows that when students feel they have at least one adult at school who cares, attendance improves by up to 35%.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So, Principal Rahh, you've been an educator. I want to just start with your perspective on why attendance becomes a number one issue in education.
I mean, the reality is this: you can't get to the destination if you never show up,
Hmm.
right? You can't like right now. Everyone is talking about the future of work and the future of learning with artificial intelligence, with new technologies. But AI still can't teach to an empty seat,
Hmm.
right? So our research has broadened through the what we call the 4 Ps, right? It's first is like you got to be present. And when you're at work, you got to be like the first job is can you show up?
Hmm.
And then can you be upskilled to progress, right? So if I'm a student, the attendance there, if I'm there for perfect attendance, like something gonna land with me. I'm gonna learn something, right? It's very hard to learn nothing if you attend 180 days or 170 days, right? So then you can progress. Then after you progress, you can show like this level of proficiency, right? And then after you show this level of proficiency, you can then now be placed in new areas of growth. So we look at it like, how can we look at the school systems? How can we look at school culture? How can we look at classroom culture and district culture and family culture and community culture to not be dream crushers, but to be dream catchers, right?
Mm,
And the reality is that many of our systems across the country are dream crushing students, right? And what do I mean by that? It means that, you know, when we're born curious, we're born adventurous, we're born as dreamers. That happens. And then you get into a system where it's like, be quiet, sit down, draw between the lines, and be so structured to the point and so rigid where it's like, damn, I'm losing my sense of dreaming. I'm losing my sense of belonging. I'm losing my sense of what is my purpose and passion when it comes to being empowered, like you said, to bring value to the society. So our work is how do we reverse engineer that?
mm,
Right? And we reverse engineer that by first bringing personalized learning, personalized rewards, personalized engagement, so it can be personalized for empowerment for kids and families to ultimately, find their hidden treasure in life.
You talk about the four P's, and I would add the fifth P, and that's empowerment, even though it doesn't
Right,
start with an
power.
E.
Yeah, for
Power.
sure. For
Power is
sure.
the fifth P for me. One thing I've been doing is working with my partner school districts that I've been supporting with, whether it's with research or reforming the entire school system, one school at a time or the entire district level.
Right.
One of the things I've really been pressing a lot of my leadership that I work with in education is this idea of out of classroom empowerment.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is that when the minute a student walks into, before they even set foot on the school site,
Yeah.
they've already been empowered by at least one school staff member, whether it's that bus driver or whether it's that staff member they run into down the street or at the local grocery store. There's staff in the school that happen to live in the same community as our
Yeah.
students. A lot of times we don't focus on them because we're busy focused on the important, and I already emphasized important, and that's a misnomer because everyone's important, but the
Right.
important factor is the teachers. And the teachers could be doing some SEL work, the teachers could be doing some empowerment work, but at
Mhm.
the end of the day, the job will be a lot easier for the teachers if by the time the kid crosses 3 boundaries with adults,
Yeah.
they've been empowered. The bus driver, the front office person, the custodial people, the management people, the administrators, and so when they're walking into class, they've already been empowered by 4 or 5 people, by a phrase, by a slogan, by a check-in.
Yeah.
Everyone in the system is behaving in the same way, in a positive, cordial, inviting, embracing way.
Yep.
So then by the time the kid gets into the classroom, they've been co-regulated, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
that co-regulation is so important, essentially meaning that adults are bridges to teaching young people how to regulate their behavior.
Absolutely.
They walk into the classroom, teacher's ready. They do a little SEL 5 minute. Hey, let's catch our breath.
Yeah.
Let's talk. What's your rose? What's your thorn? The kid talks. Okay, thank you so much. I honor your story. I hear you. I see you. Now, I need to teach you 30 minutes of math and I need you to pass these tests.
Mhm.
Let's get it. And the kid is finally ready because they have an ecosystem that has been supporting them. So, speaking of those ecosystems of care, or what I call ecosystems of cariño, you have been developing those ecosystems for years and years
Yeah.
and years. So, I want
Yeah.
to know let's go back to young Principal Rahh.
Right, right.
Wait, when's the first moment as a youngster that you realize I'm gonna be an educator?
Yeah, no, that's big. Before I answer, I want to go back to what you said about those folks who are in the building, out of the classroom that's not teachers. And the reason why I'm saying that is, man, one of my good friends is Professor Williams. He wrote a book called We Wear Kicks to Work. And he talks about one of the chapters is hidden figures in the school. And kind of what you echoed is those folks who are the hidden figures, the cafeteria lady, the custodial staff, the bus driver, the PTA rep, the security guard that's there, that's building those relationships. A lot of times we don't think about those people that are really valuable to the kid's life.
And
Like
they don't get PD.
they don't get
They don't
PD.
get conferences.
Correct.
They have to
Correct.
service the PD and the
Correct.
conference sometimes,
Correct.
but they don't get to participate.
Absolutely. And leaders, district leaders need to value those relationships and those hidden figures to use as levers, because those are the folks that boots on the ground, knowing the community, knowing the kid, and like de-escalating a lot of the times we go to schools, it's not the teacher, it's not the assistant principal, it's Miss Johnson, who's the crossing guard, who can de-escalate that child because she has this unique relationship because she's from the community. So I just want to echo like the hidden figures in the schools and districts and communities is really
Well,
important.
let's shout them out, man, because yeah, shout out to those bus drivers, cafeteria people,
Yeah.
front office people, financial people,
Paraprofessionals.
paraprofessionals, security guards,
Hmm.
all of you out there that are doing the work of supporting students that are not in the classroom, because all our research is showing that the out of classroom empowerment experience is your number one indicator for succeeding in the classroom once you finally take a seat. And if you're feeling disempowered on the outside, you're going to feel disempowered on the inside.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, going back to how this kind of started, I mean, I come from a family of educators. My father was a professor at Long Beach State University for over 34 years. He actually constituted and reinstated the Black Studies department at Long Beach State
Oh,
University.
wow.
So he developed that program, reinstated it, hired Dr. Maulana Karenga, who invented Kwanzaa, and was part of so many movements for not only Black studies, but Chicano studies across the state of California, because it was a pioneering department at that time. So I kind of say that, I was born into this. I was born with the bloodline of education and being a revolutionary from my father. Although I fought it for years, I didn't want to. I was, growing up in Compton, born and raised. You were exposed to a lot. I was exposed to a lot. I was hustling. I was rapping. I was playing football, looking at all the different pathways for the stereotypical person to get out the hood. I did, and I failed at all of them. You know what I'm saying? But I lost my football scholarship, became a teacher assistant, and realized that, education chose me. And since I started as a teacher assistant at the age of 17, 18, I've been on this mission to kind of reshape and revolutionize educational experience. And it's grown to trying to revolutionize the system,
Mm.
you
Tell me,
know?
tell me a little bit about the football scholarship. So you were a football player in high
Football
school?
player in high school, moved, I went to school in Compton, then I, graduated, actually played football at Milligan High School in Long Beach, so go Rams. And, yeah, I got offered scholarship to a few schools, ended up, pursuing it at Tuskegee University. I ended up tearing my knee playing basketball, lost my scholarship, and came home, trying to went through like a kind of depression of like, man, you putting all your eggs in this idea. I had it made, man. I knew. I was like, man, I'm gonna go play defensive tackle, get drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, buy my mom a house, prove to my family, like, yeah, I don't need to be in education. Like, look at this. And it didn't go that way.
Uh,
You look at it, and you had to pivot.
yeah.
You had to figure it out. And I was just blessed enough to know that I had a level of family support that a lot of kids like me didn't have. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? And I had a level of intellectualism that was around me that a lot of other my peers didn't have. Although I was growing up in Compton, I had a household with I'm the youngest of six. All five of my siblings had master's degrees. You know what I'm saying? So it was like school was part of the program, no matter what. Education was part of the program. So although I was hustling and doing that, I was always still in school. You know what I mean? So I always had that it running parallel to all the other social experiments that I was involved
Yeah.
in. And then, I became a teacher assistant and just fell in love with like unlocking hidden treasures in young people.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it just grew into being a
Where were you
principal.
a teacher assistant?
So I started off a teacher assistant at a non-public school in Long Beach, and it's called Zinsmeyer Academy. Zinsmeyer Academy, level 12 facility where we work with students who were either being released from the hospital or being one step of going into Los Padrinos in the juvenile hall system.
So level when you say level 12, these are young people that are going through the highest adversity,
Yeah.
highest ACEs,
And they need to
adverse
be in
childhood
and they need to be
experiences.
in the most restrictive environment, not the least restrictive, right?
Okay, so you're coming from a place, you have some safety net there, you got your family, you got
Mhm.
education. You could have gone and you fought it for a while, not
Yep.
going into ed. But finally, when you said, I'm going into education, you decide to work with the most at promise.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. So I would be I'll be lying to you if I said it was intentional. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't intentional. I was literally looking for a job. You know what I mean? So I was looking for a job and it was like, man, it's a teacher assistant at this company called ChildNet because I was a company. I'm like, cool, I could do that, right? And I had no idea what a non-public school was. I mean, I became a teacher assistant at 17, 18 years old, So I didn't know that. So, but luckily, I didn't mention in my story, I also graduated high school, and a few months later, I graduated with my AA degree.
So, okay, you,
So,
you were one of those first
yeah,
advantages of
yeah. So we had the
dual
dual
enrollment.
enrollment, dual enrollment. So I'm there with my AA degree, 18, and then I started learning like, oh, this is a non-public school with some of the most challenged students with the educational system. They were kicked out of several districts, coming back from Los Padrinos, some coming out of uh Silmar, some is like it's all
Yeah.
it's there. And then you have residents and we had to pick up the kids. So it was like for me, it was the best training ground of like learning how to engage the most disengaged.
What's your memory of like the one of the toughest young people you
You
worked
know,
with that you ended up being able to support?
man, I got several folks, man, but like similar to how you say I promise, man, that was where we started to conceptualize for myself, Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade's work around critical hope,
Mm,
right? And start to use the language of like these students are at hope, right? And I would say, man, I witnessed a lot there. I
mm,
mean, from students who were other health impaired and they had to take medication that literally changed their whole body, changed their emotion. And that was hard to see at 18, right? You're looking like, man, you're not aware of, man, students who need to be medicated or who was prescribed to be medicated to function in an educational
yeah.
setting. And that was really challenging. I seen folks, I seen triggers, right? Triggers of just from food to how sodium can impact a kid's emotion, how light can impact it, how just simple things can impact some. So it taught me empathy,
Mm,
right? It taught me how to navigate multiple young people who have different needs. You want to talk about like differentiation and differentiating instruction or differentiated behavioral support. I was in the middle of it, right? And it was the best time because you really, I mean, anybody that worked at a non-public school they know like if you have to love it
yeah.
and I loved it. I was young, I was ambitious, and then when I got my confidence of being able to unlock, because so I started to be the teacher for math. So I was a teacher assistant, but I was always good in math. And the teacher at that time, shout outs to Mr. Brown, he just started letting me teach the math section. And I started to teach math, and I didn't know anything about teaching, but I know about connecting with my folks. I knew how to I didn't know nothing about culturally responsive teaching at that time. It was just natural for me to use culture to connect with kids. So it was like when I'm teaching word problems in math, it's simple. It's like, hey, we go to Delamo swap meet. If you want 2 packs of a white t-shirt, you want a gold chain, how much is that gonna charge? You know what I mean? Like reduce that to get a fitted cap. Like I'm using language that they understand. And they start to say, man, math is easy, right? Like, oh, one step variables. It's easy to kind of talk to them about. And then I realized I'm teaching math every day for like an hour and I remember I'm sitting down and I'm talking with Mr. Brown. I'm like, man, I'm actually doing a lot of teaching. We sitting down talking, and he's letting me know how much he getting paid and how much I was getting paid at that time. I was getting paid like $12 an hour, and he's getting paid like $85,000 in 20. This is like 2008, 2007. Just tell 2006, 2007 actually. And I'm like, dude, I need to go become a teacher. You know what I mean? Like I need to like because I'm already doing it, right?
Yeah.
But going back to the young people, man, it was a learning experience because we actually had to be PROACT trained. And PROACT trained means that it was a level 12 facility. So uh we had to restrict kids sometimes. We had to put our hands on kids to make sure that they didn't hurt themselves or others.
Others, yeah.
And that was tough to see too, right? And where a student will AWOL and they come back and we would have to make sure that they just was safe.
Yeah.
I seen students not only with suicidal ideation, but attempts,
Attempts.
right? And you seeing that. And that's the vicarious trauma, right?
Totally.
That you're going
Secondary.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, the secondary trauma. But it equipped me to be able to revolutionize educational experience for what God had planned for me when I became a principal. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And that is what you cannot, no amount of money, no amount of
Training,
reading and books
college,
yeah, no amount of
credentials.
college can supplant that experience. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Now, I remember I was getting my undergrad degree at Cal State, and man, I got a call, man. You know, like you said, sometimes it's bigger than you. Something bigger than you calls you. And I got a call from these teachers,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Hey, we know you're from, you know, the hood. We know that what you've been through. We know you've been sharing your story. One of our youngsters at the middle school just was stabbed by another youngster at the
Mm,
middle school, and unfortunately passed away. And they're like, "Can you come help us?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll come help." So I started volunteering. I'm still a college student, and they're like, "Guess what?" And, a couple weeks into it, I'm working with the homies, like
yeah.
trying to diffuse it because it was bad, man. They were bringing knives and guns to
Right.
school, and I'm trying to diffuse it. It's two sets, that kind of thing. And then 2 weeks into it, they're like, "Guess what? We know you're paying for gas to travel all the way over here. We know you got your college classes. We know you got your." I was a waiter at the time at a restaurant. Your waiter job. They're like, "We just got a grant, and we want to hire you full time." And I was like,
Mm,
"Really, me?"
yeah, yeah.
I was like, "But I got college classes." They're like, "We'll adjust around your schedule." I'm like, "All right." So I started working with these kids that were caught up deep in the streets, man. They weren't even coming to school anymore.
Mhm.
And so I had to think outside the box. So I would actually go hang out with them at the park or on the streets when during the school day when they didn't show up to go
Mhm.
find them. So I knew where to find them, right? That was my whole stomping ground. So I knew exactly where they were, and I go find them, and they were ready. They were getting ready for a big war,
Wow.
and they're like, "We don't get, stay out of the way.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
going."
yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, why don't we do this?" And it was a moment when I realized my career was starting, but I could just tank my career,
Mm,
but I still decided to do it, and that was to follow what I thought was gonna diffuse the situation.
right.
So I said to them, "Hey, why don't we, bring some gloves at the park
Right.
and meet up? No knives, no
Yeah,
guns.
yeah.
You got beef with so and
Let's
so.
shut that up.
Let's call it.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
call them in." And because you're putting them up to a challenge, they can't say no.
Right.
'Cause then they'll look like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
coward in front of their
Yeah.
homies. So and then they have some parameters and rules that they follow, so they're just like, "All right." So, man, we had about 6 fights,
Mhm, mhm.
over the course of a few days, and, I was the referee,
Right,
but I was
right,
the only, like,
right,
adult there,
right.
it's just like and it was scary, man,
Yeah,
'cause you didn't
yeah.
know what was really gonna happen, but, man, after they threw down, they
Boom.
they squashed it, man.
Correct.
And I went back to the school and they're like, "Hey, things are quiet, like,
Yeah.
the kids are mellow.
Yep.
You know what happened, Victor Rios?" I'm like, "No, I just been hanging out with them at the park. I
Right,
don't know what
right,
happened." But
right.
but already I had set up these systems that maybe I was breaking a lot of rules,
Mhm, mhm.
but were the right kind of systems at the moment. It's what the
Right,
community needed.
right.
And, it's not like, their parents already for these kids either couldn't control them anyway or
Yeah,
were not around.
yeah.
So it's not like if you show up with a bloody lip from a fight with
But,
gloves on.
like what you said, and this is proven to be true a lot, man, like, sometimes when you have radical circumstances, you have to come up with radical solutions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you have to look at it like, man, I'd rather this kid come home with a bloody lip than to lose his life.
Yeah.
Right? I'd rather this kid come home with some knuckles than for him to be in prison.
Mhm.
Right? And it's different for kids growing up like how we grew up, right? Like we grew up like how we grew up, we had gloves because we would rather be like, hey, instead of us taking it there, like getting the gloves. We'll be playing football in the street, your testosterone get to a certain level, or hey, get the gloves, right? And you resolve the differences. And it's like there's a group in Atlanta that does something similar with kids, like teach them out of the box, but it's like you want to get your differences, come into a real organized ring and get it out the way
Yeah.
versus picking up a gun, versus picking up a knife, versus those alternatives. And I'm a component of it, man.
Oh, thank you for being for giving me the vote of confidence, man. I mean, I haven't done it since,
Yeah.
but when you're young, then that was my point, right? Like you were young, working with level 12 young people.
Yep.
I was young, working with young people, literally in the middle of knives and guns, but our heart was there.
Right.
And when your heart is there, um, and something bigger than you has called you to do the work, you're just going to do the work.
That's a fact.
And afterwards, if you survive it, and we've been blessed to survive it, now we could lead with, as you said, nothing can take that experience away.
Yep.
So you go on, you become a teacher.
Yeah, so I become a teacher at Markham Middle School up in Watts. So my father graduated and attended Markham Middle School. My family from Watts and Compton, so started teaching in Watts. My sister was teaching there, so my sister and I, we became teachers. Started to and they gave me a class with the kids that nobody wanted at the school.
Hmm.
So it was like, what? They gave me a small classroom with about 18, 20 kids, and it was like, these are the kids that we don't know what to do. You got to take them, right? And I'm a first year teacher. I'm like 20 years old now, right? Um, and I just did what I did. Like I took the same learning that I had at the level 12 facility and applied it there, and it just took off, right? I started to come up with just different ways to engage kids. And one of the most crazy ways, some of yours was, I had this thing called How To Tuesdays, right? And How To Tuesdays was like this real life. And now it's like project based learning, but at that time I didn't know what it was. I was just like, I was just trying to engage them. So we was like doing home ec. We was like, it was my way of bringing like everything we learned from math, ELA, history into like a project, like an interdisciplinary unit. So I would teach them like how to cook and talking about the history of like meat and the science behind like why it goes through this process. And like we would go through it and dissect it, looking at the nutrients, and then we'll do one-step equations off the nutrients and all this stuff. And then at the end of it, like we'll make a burger in the classroom. I brought in a George Foreman. I don't know if y'all remember George Foreman. Yeah, the Foreman machine. Steam was coming up in the classroom. Like, I hope nobody, we doing all that. We making shakes. We doing all these like really connect. So the kids start to love the classroom. And to the point where the administrators walked in, they was like, we didn't know that they could sit down in the classroom for 2 hours. And it was just a proof to me that, man, everything is around like cultural competence and cultural connection.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to do that, you got to be culturally conscious. Like this is the key. The key is educators have to be culturally conscious to be able to culturally connect with kids so they can learn.
Culturally conscious to be
To be equipped to culturally connect with kids so they can learn. Too many times we will implement like, hey, here's cultural relevant strategies or culturally responsive strategies. But if you're not culturally conscious, you can't even fully with fidelity implement those strategies, right? So you got to be able to have competence. And in order to really have competence, you got to be conscious of your not only of oneself to the culture that you're connecting with, right? And this is not connected to race. This is connected to consciousness,
Yeah. So
right?
can a white teacher that grew up in the suburbs that goes to teach in Compton, could they do it?
Absolutely, right? If they're willing to become culturally conscious, right? And how do you do that? You have to go in and understand it. There may be some things you have to unlearn.
Mm.
There may be some things that you have to relearn.
Mm.
There's going to be some understanding of how the community dynamics are, right? And you got to be willing to see like that community dynamic is different than the community that you came from. Like there's a great book called Blind Spot: The Hidden Biases of Good People. We all have a blind spot. Like we all have it. There's nothing that you can do to say that you don't have one. It's from your upbringing, it's from your readings, it's from your experiences, and you in your mind, your brain builds up a blind spot for you, right? Like for example, people that hear me speak all the time, they know my blind spot. When I first started teaching, I was focused on like the young boys, specifically the young black boys. I'm like, man, they were number one referred to special education, number one being expelled, number one in suicide by homicide. They were number one in all these negative aspects, last in math scores. So I'm like, I got to support these young boys, right? And next thing you know, I'm working with the classroom. I'm like, man, the boys are doing great. You want to know who was struggling the most? The girls.
It's opposite to other classrooms.
Right? The girls in my classroom, I was like, man, the problem is the girls. The girls. But it wasn't. The girls were my blind spot because the things and the strategies that I was doing with the boys, I wasn't doing with the girls because I didn't feel like they needed because it was my blind spot. So I always tell educators, like, you need to know your strength as an educator. You need to know your areas of growth as an educator. But if you can identify both of those, the last thing you must identify is what's your blind spot?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You know your strengths, you know your weakness, but can you identify your blind spot? Because if you don't identify your blind spot, it's like it's like getting in a car, not knowing where the blind spot is in the car. What can happen? Car crash.
Yeah.
And the same thing is happening in classrooms, in schools, in districts, in communities every day, is that you're operating in a way that, man, that's your blind spot. And you're crashing with that kid every day
And the
because
community and the culture.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But it takes humility to
For sure.
be able to recognize our blind spots. And I think it takes I've been doing a lot of work myself personally on self-regulation, and now I'm delving into co-regulation. And that to me, co is collect means collective.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's cool that I'd learn how to self-regulate, but what if the entire community
Mhm.
has tools to help each other regulate? And as you know, in some of your models too, the best people to help other kids regulate is other kids
That's
themselves,
a fact.
peer regulators. Like, hey, homie, like, chill. Like, we're gonna
Relax.
take care of
Yeah.
it. And remember what
Yes.
you learned in class about
Yeah.
breathing and recognizing you're starting to see red. But when you see red, that doesn't mean take off. It means
Correct.
ground yourself. And so for us to move into a state of helping adults, not just kids, but adults self regulate and co regulate, and importantly, be fellow co regulators. The
Yeah.
bridge, right, between someone that's dysregulated out there, could be a kid or an adult, could be a fellow staff member,
Right.
fellow teacher, and then having strategies for us to, hey, it's okay. Remember what we're in the job to do. And I think that takes a lot of humility, because if we don't know how to ground ourselves and let our ego go, we're not going to want to listen to people that say, hey,
That's
can
a
I
fact.
tell you the growth area? Can I tell you your blind spot? Because we don't see our blind spot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I mean, it goes back to like even the form of like the boxing. Like before you get to kids getting on gloves, the idea is to have strategies of what you kind of said, right? It's like let's let's work on emotional regulation. Let's work on self-regulation. Let's work on like collective regulation, right? And then at the end, if it's like, man, you can't do nothing to resolve, we're gonna make sure we resolve it. It's like this we gotta restore the community back, right? Like what does it take? Like I always tell people, you you have to be able to like restorative practices means that we have to restore something back to where it once was. You can't restore a community if it's a dysfunctional community. You want to restore it back to dysfunction,
Yeah.
right? You want to try to get it to be functional. So then when something happens, we can restore it back to this functioning ecosystem. So regulation is part of that, right? It's when I was a principal, like our mission was first for most of my career as a principal was we pursue to have every student achieve self-actualization, right?
I'm gonna let that sink in. So
Yeah,
your mission every day on a daily basis was to implement practices where every child would become self-actualized.
correct.
Mm.
Right? And for us, we define that because we have to operationally define that through, the hierarchy of needs, but also like what does that pillar look like? Like what does it sound like for us to know that we achieved that mission? And self-actualization, when a kid self-actualized at our school, it meant that they could articulate their vision of their life in context to the world. And that was exhibited through what we call presentations of learning. So they had to exhibit that they can self-actualize as a rites of passage every year, right? They had to do similar to like a defense to prove that they have actualized for that year, and it's a rites of passage, right? So that let us know if we were doing our job as a community.
So they would
And
stand. You had kids standing in front of a committee of people, of
correct,
adults,
correct.
and they were presenting. So they had to do public speaking, know
Yep,
how to tell their story, know
yep,
how to make a point,
yep.
talk about policy and program implication, all of that good
All that,
stuff.
all that.
Uh,
Because one of the big things that I knew for kids coming from where I come from, there's two skills surviving in America. America is capitalism, right? And capitalism is for you if you want to always have a job. To me, there's two things that if you're good at, you can always survive in capitalism: the ability to market and the ability to sell. That like those two skills, but those are not taught,
no.
right?
And I just want to bring this up because I feel like a lot of times, in some pockets of our communities, um, there there's a very important struggle, right? That capitalism has left us behind.
Mhm.
And in that conversation, if capitalism has left us behind, we have to fight capitalism.
Mhm.
But sometimes we forget that in fighting capitalism to make it better for all, um, we sometimes send the message to young people like, hey, capitalism has left you behind, so just completely ignore
Correct.
everything about capitalism. And so you got young people that end up giving up because they're being told, like, hey,
Right.
don't learn the hustle skills,
Correct.
don't learn the marketing skills,
Correct.
don't learn the salesmanship skill, don't learn social entrepreneurship because that's all capitalism.
Correct.
But the truth is that there's two battlefronts. One is the long-term one, which is let's create better systems
Mhm.
that's gonna support everyone and not leave anyone behind. And then the other front is while we create those new systems, let's learn how to operate in this system,
Right.
bring about some capital for our communities so we
Correct.
could uplift our communities with that capital.
Correct. And like I tell people all the time, I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm a social capitalist. And when I say that, I mean, like I always tell people, I was an entrepreneur that became an educator and became a principal, not a principal who just became an entrepreneur. Right. And I was always a hustler entrepreneur growing up. And then I used those same skills and transferred it in education. And to me, I look at everything through a lens of marketing and selling, right? Like when I'm on an interview, I had to market myself. And then when I'm speaking with you, I'm selling my intellect. I'm selling my skills to you, right? And I look at that as like you have to be able to listen. Like think about car salesmen, right? Like they great ones will listen, hear, know about your family, know about your kids, and be like, man, I got the perfect car for you, right? And those you're using so many great skills in that skill set. So I think it's important for our kids to be able to articulate, be able to listen, be able to read, be able to analyze, be able to critically think. Right? When you're looking at, you want to know critical thinking, get into entrepreneurship and look at your balance sheet. Look at your cash flow. Right? You're gonna have to make some pivots. You're gonna have to critically solve a cash flow problem. Right? So that's what I'll present to my kids, right? I bring real life things to them so they can understand that, you know, you need to understand the unit of economics. However, you also still need to be conscious. I'm going to teach you capitalism and how to win in the ecosystem of capitalism, but I'm also going to teach you colonialism
Mm.
and understand to fully dissect it, you have to know colonialism because it's rooted in capitalism, right?
Mhm.
So you gotta be able to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of this game,
Yeah.
and where do you sit, right? And you gotta make your own decision. But for me, opportunity comes with I'm gonna put the cards out. I'm not gonna deny you. I'm not going to indoctrinate you in a card. Hey, these are all the paths that you can take. Now you got to choose.
Yeah.
You want to jump into being just a straight capitalist? Understand colonialism and understand if that mindset led to colonialism, and look at all the damage that was done in that. Right. So that's kind of like how I approached it, man, and we had great success.
Yeah, so thank you for talking about this big, huge contrast between fighting oppression, capitalism, colonialism, legacies. Now people are trying to deny slavery nowadays. People are trying to deny that the Americas were stolen from indigenous peoples. People trying to celebrate Columbus without talking about the atrocities he committed. And so we're in a place today where we're just trying to celebrate the bad or ugly side of capitalism. And I hear what you're saying. You're saying, look, we got to teach everyone every part of the story.
Yeah.
And then as their own independent thinkers, they can decide, as you say, I just want to be a capitalist, period. I met kids like that. I don't care about any social. I just want to make money for myself. More power to you. And I met a lot more kids though, because when you come from struggle, you're more likely to say, I want to help my family, I want to help my community, but I also want to make money. And then I've met kids that are like, look, I don't believe in this system. I'm just opting out completely and building on my own underground economy. And that's on them. But at least we have a chance as their educators to teach them all the aspects of the history, and then they can decide what part
That's
to adapt in their own
that's
work.
yeah. I mean, because to me, that's what America is. It's we talk about independent thinkers, independent go-getters, like critical thinkers. It's hey, we're gonna lay the cards out. We're gonna lay the information out. Make your decision, but also you live with your decision,
Mhm.
right? And if you're pursuing that under like, I'm not here to, and I would love for you to be a social entrepreneur. I would love for you to be that. But if you also say like, hey man, I want to come over here and build a world like that, go build it, right? Go buy some land in rural America and build your little community, right? Of the same kind of thinkers and exists in America, right? So I think a lot of times we will say we want independent thinkers, but we want independent. A lot of times people want independent thinkers to think like them,
Exactly.
right?
That's a problem
Versus
with our
that's
country
the problem,
today.
right? It's that intellectual discourse is where we should have not intellectual arguing, but discourse of understanding that we have differences and we can accept those differences and have the ability to be like, well, see my perspective on this, and this is why I'm building like this, right? And I want to be able to see your perspective. I always say, man, no one is above criticism and no one is below a conversation, right?
Mhm.
And that's where I think what had us be successful as a school, what had us have great numbers, and what ultimately is where we see the world that we're building is like intellectual discourse, but like you can't have one without the other. I'm not going to just teach you the greatness of this. Capitalism has produced great things, right? The light, oh, like this is innovation is driven by, folks who want to try to build a company that could change their family's life or build generational wealth. And they creatively built technology, right, to solve problems or built this product to solve problems. And some people were like, man, I just want to solve my own problem. And it just fell into it, right? So you have all these different mechanisms of how people have changed their lives through innovation, but a lot of it is tied to
Yeah.
our
Will you
culture.
define like a lot of my audience, it's like young people in the high school, the teacher puts on the episode and they get to listen to incredible folks like yourself. So will you define social entrepreneurship for us?
Yeah, man. So a social entrepreneur is someone who believe in like they don't lose sight of the human connection. They're doing human centered work, impact work, while also having entrepreneurship or capitalism where they're building generational wealth, and those two things can coexist, right? An example of that you see a lot of high impact companies that have both, right? They do good when they also make money, right? Like those two things can coexist. I think young people sometimes growing up how we grow up, you say like, man, if you make a lot of money, you're just a bad person, right? Like, and to me, when you are socially conscious and you care about the community, you care about when you get an abundance of resources, you're going to deploy that back to make impact in your community. And typically, you become a philanthropist, or typically, you build new ecosystems that can repeat the same thing. So a social entrepreneur is someone who builds a company for good. And once they get to an abundant stage, they reverse engineer and try to multiply that and deploying capital and resources back into the community. So social entrepreneurship is that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I'll give an example of my own work. I do a lot of free work out in the communities, out in schools, provide a lot of services, um, and even one of my books, my book, Street Life, Poverty, Gangs, and a PhD. That book, I wrote it with the young people that I studied in Oakland, California, in mind, and I wrote an academic book about their experience through the school to prison pipeline. It was the
Mhm.
first systematic study of the school to prison pipeline, and it was young black and brown young men. And so I took the book, the academic book, it's called Punished: Policing the Lives of Black and Latino Boys. I published it with New York University Press. It was a book that I needed for my job as a professor. So I took it to them. I'm like, "Hey guys, what do you think?" And then one of them was like trying to read it, and he goes, "Man, it's all right." And then he goes, "But it don't speak to me."
Right.
And right when he said it don't speak to me, man, my heart sank,
Mhm.
and I got mad at myself because I'm like, man, here I've been studying these young people, trying to make change for them, but I write something that doesn't speak to them.
Mhm.
So that's when I went home. I was just upset about what had happened, and I was losing sleep in the middle of the night. You know, my wife was like, she woke up, she noticed I was awake, and she goes, "Hey, what's going on?" I was like, "Man, I'm upset about writing a book that doesn't speak to these young people." And then she just like half asleep, turns around, goes back to sleep. But before she goes back to sleep, she goes, um, "We'll do something about it." And she knocked out, right? And I was like, she's right. So I get up, man. Every time I'm losing sleep, I'm writing a smaller, shorter book that speaks to them. And so that became that book, Street Life. And I took that book back to them. It was 3, 4-page chapters, direct messages,
Yeah.
inspirational stories for them to read. I handed them the book and I asked them, "Hey, what do you think?" And they said, "Yeah, man, I like it." And how I knew they really liked it is that they texted me. They're like, "Hey, bring 20 more copies for the homies."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I brought more books. Then they shared the books with their teachers, and the teachers started ordering them from me. And all of a sudden, man, one day I got this big order from all the juvies in LA County,
Mhm.
orders from other juvies, orders from continuation schools, community colleges, and now it's sold over 100,000 copies.
That's
So
dope.
what I did with that money, right? Because I got some good money coming in from it, turned that money around and created more programs for young people that are at promise. But I guess to your point, if we're not able to bring some form of capital,
You can't multiply.
how you gonna go support the
You
community?
you can't, right? So like social entrepreneurship is building companies and businesses for the people, right? For the society, for the community, for the world, right? Like you're building something with the end user or being in mind, like what you just did. That's social entrepreneurship because you're like, I'm building for the community, right? Then that capital comes in, and then I reinvest it back into the community, right? But social entrepreneurship is what I promote over nonprofit. And let me tell you why. Um, because typically we have so many nonprofits, and I love our nonprofits, but we need bigger companies that can scale, that can bring in the level of revenue to be able to rinse and repeat,
Do you
right?
know the numbers? Like, I know, and maybe this is a good transition to talk about your fintech
Mhm,
company
mhm.
you've established. Do you know the percentages of uh, black owned, um, or the investment that goes into black owned tech companies?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1% of all, what do they call it?
Venture capital.
Venture capital. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, let me say it clearly so everyone hears this right. Less than 1% of all venture capital,
Goes into black and brown tech founders.
that includes brown too, black
Yeah, so
and
it's
brown.
really like 0.3%.
Wow. So then you have brown people, and now
Yeah,
that's less
yeah,
than
yeah. So
1%
yeah.
of all of us, our
So
communities,
yeah, so you're talking about
billions, trillions,
billions of
trillions, maybe. Yeah.
dollars. You're getting less than 1%
So
of that.
so the Elon Musk, the Peter Thiels, they're getting people investing in them, even
Right.
though they already got money.
Right.
While we might have smart people out there that
Right.
want to start their tech
Yeah.
companies, but that money isn't flowing in
So
that
that's why it's
direction.
important for young people to understand the flow of money in America, I'll just say, right? So typically, and this is one sector, right? You have the banks, you have angel investors, but we'll talk about venture capital, right? What most people don't know is like in venture capital, let's say you and I were like, man, we want to invest in black and brown uh, entrepreneurs who are building companies that can be big, right? Now we need to go and try to raise money so we can use other people's money to invest it. So a lot of people don't know that most universities, their endowments have a nice percentage that invest in venture capital. Watch this. Think about when you think about what are some of the biggest universities in America that everybody try to get to,
Stanford, Harvard,
right?
Caltech, yeah.
They have the biggest endowments.
Yep.
Stanford, Harvard, Columbia, Yale. Cool. So they take a lot of their endowment money, give it to venture capital. Then venture capital deploys that into companies. However, it is to the venture capital, because they got to return that money to those colleges, that they invest in some folks who maybe have went to that school.
Mhm.
So then it becomes an kind of an ecosystem of like this money goes to this venture capitalist that probably invests in somebody that went to Stanford, like in those top colleges, right? So then that becomes like a gatekeeper of, well, that money is just going into who knows who, becomes like a big country club, right? And then you go look at how hard is it for black and brown folks to get into that country club to get capital. Well, it's very difficult, right? Like that's why you had to have different legislation to accept folks to be part of it. So venture capital is a way for a lot of, mostly the companies that you use have been venture backed. Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, Um, all these companies are venture backed. It is a way that a lot of companies get capital to be able to grow and to be able to expand and to be able to build something big. But we're left out of that conversation. Not only the conversation, we're left out of getting dollars, right? So not only do you get less than 1%, but from apples to apples, let's say that you had a company and you were making $1 million a year and you just did it by yourself and now you're trying to raise capital. And then you had a counterpart who was out of Stanford with the same metrics, same industry, they're getting 10 times more than you. So maybe you raised 1 million, they're getting 10, right? So, but that's your competitor. So the cycle of you still have to be 10 times better still exists when it comes to like capital deficiencies in our community, right?
Wow.
And then what happens? Those companies get bought or acquired through private equity, a merger and acquisition. The founder gets 20 million, 50 million, 60 million, 100 million, and then they deploy that back into their communities, right? And then they angel invest, and then that cycle continues, and we're still trying to build, right? So you start to see like how, if we're looking at a chart, it goes like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's
And we're in California, the center of the universe for tech company development and
Silicon
tech
Valley.
company investment.
Yep. Silicon Valley. A lot of other like Utah is starting to become big. Austin, Dallas, of course, New York. But like also our communities, we don't even know about startups like that, right? Like Compton, we don't have a startup. Like Compton don't have a startup ecosystem. The Bronx and like a lot of urban areas don't have a startup ecosystem because a lot of times growing up, we just wasn't exposed to it. I didn't get exposed to what a startup was until I was 32 years old.
Wow.
Right? I didn't know nothing about a startup. It was from where I grew up, it was like get an LLC, maybe sell some shirts, candle business, like our mom, you know what I mean? Like a pop shop, which is cool, nothing wrong with it. But these are considered in the world that I'm in, those are lifestyle businesses, small businesses, which is great. A startup is fundamentally different than a lifestyle in a small business, right? You're trying to build something over $100 million, right?
Wow.
You're trying to build something to be a $1 billion company, right? And we're just never exposed to that because one is that, and that's why I talk about that's dream crushing because we just never was exposed to it.
Yeah.
We didn't get exposed to a point of like, oh, this is how we can build not only a company from our community, but a company for the world.
Yeah. And it's for social good. Like Khan Academy, for instance, that's a
Correct.
billion-dollar company,
Correct.
and it's educating little kids
Correct.
in the middle of nowhere. As long as you have a little internet connection, you
Correct.
pretty much have a teacher that's teaching you without necessarily having a teacher present because maybe it's a rural community. It's hard to
Correct.
get teachers to go there.
Correct.
And so like that social good, man, what is that worth? It's worth a lot.
It's worth
So
it.
talk to us about your own Knowlej platform.
Yeah, I think I talk about how we came to it. I mean, I was a principal, doing well as a principal, running the school, founded a high school in my community, had great success, wrote a book on it, did all those great things, right? And realized one day that we were changing this experience, but we wasn't changing the system. So I had a student, and I mean, if you're in this game, you've had students that you work with they're at hope students, foster care, um, trying to get to college, and he got accepted. He needed for like $408 to get from California to Alabama. He was accepted to Tuskegee University, another school that I was accepted to, and he tried to hustle the money up on the streets.
Mm.
And before he can get the money, the streets took his life.
Whoa.
Right? And
Wait. This is a young man that was already admitted to college.
Correct.
And he was just trying to make some money to be able to pay his way to college. So he's like, hold on, I'm going to hustle how I have access to hustle in the community.
Correct.
And in that few months spread before he went out,
He was murdered.
wow.
Right? And somebody say, well, he should have did it a different route of this. I mean, you're exposed to what you're exposed to, right?
Yeah.
You know, a kid from a different area could just possibly go ask, their auntie or their uncle or go get a job at their pop's place. He's a foster care kid. He didn't have those type of resources. So he tried to make the best decision that he felt in his proximity he made. But also, there's another thing that like scholarships, it's like a secret society, right? Like trying to find money for kids, especially in like low income where we are at, because how most schools are structured, the college counselor at a high school got like 300 kids that they're serving, right? They got 200 and some kids. It's hard for them to personalize the financial needs for 300 kids on your caseload, right? So, he lost his life. So I had this radical idea. I was like, man, what if I could provide every student in my high school with a college savings and a checking account and incentivize them with direct deposits for attendance, learning, and like college acceptances and stuff like that. So I was building out like a credit union in my high school. No, seriously. Like we were building out a credit
Wow.
union where we were going to give every kid these accounts, partnership with the credit union, families were going to be involved. And I was like, had this vision of like, man, what if we flipped counselors and got financial counselors to like get them to understand the financial component of grades? Because I remember growing up, it was like, yo, my pops would be like, A is $100, a B is $50, a C is. So it was like there is transactional value for grades, right? And then COVID happens.
Oh man. Yeah.
So he loses his life, and then I was going to UCLA for my doctorate, and I was going to study the gamification of financial incentives in school. And I remember being the mad person I am, like, man, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? Because I was just like, and nothing against it. For me, like a lot of people were, I feel like if you're going to get your doctorate, it got to be something that you are like, that's you, what you want to do. It wasn't ever really for me. It was like, everybody was like, you just got to go get your doctorate. I'm in there. I'm like, man, I'm about to get like $80,000, $70,000. And I'm like, man, what if I can just go build something, right? So I dropped out, and then I lost that student. I'm like, man, I remember telling my wife, like, and I just feel like I need to build, and so I quit my job as a principal in 2022, and I went on this journey to try to revolutionize educational experience. And at that time, that was the birth of knowledge. I was like, man, what if I could build a technology that not deploy credit unions in every school, but the technology becomes this version of a credit union that allows kids to earn. Pretty much what we want to do is get kids to fund their future,
Mm.
right? Because if that kid had that pocket of money, he wouldn't need it to go and try to hustle it. So what if we can have from kindergarten to 12 family accounts where kids can earn money for their academic achievement in school. And then when they graduate, they can use that money for college, business, and life.
Mm.
And that was the birth of knowledge. So first we were going to like be radical, and we were going to like give kids Bitcoin and crypto and things like that. But like I say, we were 20 years ahead. So then we, went back and was like, hey, let's first start with gift cards. Let's just start with gift cards. And then let's get a banking partner. And then we got a banking partner. So shout outs to Green Dot Bank and Stockpile, which is our financial partners that allows kids to earn fractional shares of stock in school for attendance and learning, as well as direct payments on a debit card from foundations and other supports. So we partner with schools and districts and states to incentivize students and families with financial incentives like fractional shares of stock, direct payments on debit cards, and personalized rewards for increasing attendance, increasing grades and GPAs, behavior, all in school, helping schools not only increase academic achievement, but we also increase financial literacy amongst families and financially empowering them to add a lot of value to the world upon graduating high school.
Yeah.
So that's what we built, and we raised some venture capital. So I'm part of the 1% that that have been lucky enough to raise some venture capital, and we have a simple mission, man. Is we want kids globally to fund their future on our platform and get partners who want believe in that mission to help us fund their future.
That's amazing. So
Yep.
so talk about I started the episode saying empowerment. Like
Yep.
and I was talking about social empowerment. But social empowerment can only go so far. So
Yep.
like social empowerment is, hey, the front office ladies like, how you doing?
Hmm.
We care for you. The bus driver is like, hey, I got you. I believe in your dreams. The custodian person is like, I want you to go to college. I want you to
Yeah.
do good in life. The teacher is doing SEL and saying, how are you feeling? How's your heart? Okay, thank you for telling me. Let's do our math.
Right.
But there's a missing piece.
Yep.
And that's the fact that when you go home, you're still broke.
You still broke.
And when you go home, you don't know if the next day your parents are going to have a job.
Correct.
You don't know if they're going to get snatched up now in our times with these immigration raids. If you happen to have parents that are undocumented, you don't know if if you're growing up in a community with a lot of violence, if your parents even going to show up from work.
Right.
That financial insecurity needs some kind of umbrella that says to the kid, you could fund your own future
Yes.
with some of the hope here, but not just hope, actual financial
You gotta
incentives
have it.
that build up.
You gotta have it.
And that's where they learn
Yeah.
about the power of compound interest.
Correct.
You're only earning $100 this month, but you're only in third grade.
Correct.
That $100 is
It
gonna
could be
compound for you
it
by
be
the time you're
1,200, be 1,500,
18.
be
Yep.
2,000, and people say like that ain't life changing money, but that can change a kid's life,
Oh yeah, there's
right?
so much
And
research
it
on the number one indicator of supporting folks that are struggling in poverty. Um, and there's so much research on this. You could give them EBT cards. You could give them, um, bring them groceries. You could give, but the number one thing that changes their life is cash.
Mhm.
Cash is still king. And there's many explanations from it, but really what it means is I have the autonomy to make choices with this
Correct.
money versus someone bringing me some food and assuming that that's what I need at this moment.
And like art so like as a principle and what I started to learn was that, you know, you can teach somebody all the financial education, which is great. We always have to have that. But what we started to realize in some research and thanks to our partners at Stockpile, we started to see that there wasn't a difference with a college graduate who studied finance and studied the stock market, but who was still didn't have money, was not making investments at a higher rate than somebody who had the equivalent salary. But you want to know the differentiator? Was somebody who actually, no matter if it was a dollar, seeing the power of actually taking the action of investing,
Yes.
right? So our thesis was like financial education is one prong. If it's a it's just one component. We need to make sure that kids get exposed, but they also get the money,
Yeah.
right? So in order to have the exposure to actually take the action to invest, right? So we were like, well, how can we embed that into all the things that our schools need? Because we've been doing a lot of redesign work and revolutionary school culture work, and we're doing the human-centered work. But we know it takes years to move and have a paradigm shift with human beings, and it just takes time. But during that time, we started to realize that families were still struggling, and they were still the youth still graduating financially illiterate. So we started to also see the intersection of those same students who were low income, foster care, English language learners. They were at an alarming rate the number one holders of the student loan debt. So when you start to see like you can close the achievement gap, but then those same students, when they go to higher ed, they get hit with the wealth gap or the loans that they don't, now they start to be disgruntled and they start to have friction where it's like, wait, I went to school, I did everything right, I got a master's degree in social work, and shout out to our social workers. I'm making $80,000 a year, but I have $120,000 in student loans.
Hmm.
This was like, and
And
I'm
I can't
still
buy a
living in the
house.
hood, and I
And I
can't
can't
buy a
buy a
house.
house. I'm renting in the hood. Yeah.
So we were like, well, what if we can now not only incentivize you with investing at an earlier age, but what if we incentivize you and expose you to multiple career options, right? Because we also start to see that most kids coming from where we come from, we're exposing them to solving the problems in their proximity, which is great, but we're not teaching them how to solve them in high value ways and high skill ways, meaning that what if you built the technology that can support it? What if you became a social entrepreneur that can support it? Or maybe you worked for a social entrepreneur, so that is important because another reason why when you think about how resources and capital and generational wealth is gained, one is a lot through real estate, but two is for when these mergers and acquisitions happen and liquidity events happen, it changes. See, you never hear about the first other employees of Facebook. Their lives have been changed, right? Just by being an employee of one of those startups and getting equity, getting a percentage of ownership in the company, when that company gets acquired, your life changes as well. And if you get more um, folks, let's just say we in Watts, and we got 100 people that we employ through this social technology to help, um, connect food banks for folks, and then we connect with food banks like Kroger, and they pay us to use our technology with their families, and we're all working there. And then Kroger say, you know what? We're just gonna buy this whole technology, 100 million. You had 10%, you had 10%, you had 5%, you had 7%, he has 30%. Y'all all millionaires now. Now you go and you can deploy more another business to help support the community as well. Or now you can go build a gymnasium. Now you can go build your own community resource center. And
Yeah.
those are things that happen in more affluent communities that just keeps the cycle
Yeah.
going that we don't have.
And then you could develop a model, I assume, where um, you make sure that no one gets left behind in the
Correct.
community in which you're solving the problem. Because a lot of times what happens is we solve problems, we get recognized as the stars in our communities,
Correct.
and we get elevated, become the millionaires, and then we forget about where we came from.
Correct.
But with this model, you have sort of I wouldn't call it trickle down. I would call it trickle around.
Correct.
Like the money comes in and we're going to
Correct.
trickle it around, and we haven't really explored that model because we don't have a lot of role models out there
Correct.
doing that kind of work. I want to go back to a really fun concept I've been hearing for years and years about you, all the way back from when you were principal, and that's I think this is a great one. It really exemplifies kind of your work as a social entrepreneur and inspiring, motivating kids. And that's the J's for Days
Days
project.
for
Can you tell us
days, man.
about
Like the
that?
days for days. So yeah, when I was a principal, I mean, prior to I was a principal, man, I was doing J's for days when I was a teacher. Um, so the concept of J's for days, I was always in Jordans. I grew up in Jordans. Grew up just that was just part of the culture, right? And my kids similar, you know. And I was like, man, listen. They started off with like, yo, I want to get y'all teaching math. Like, hey, yo, for the days that y'all learn math, one of y'all gonna get a pair of Jordan sneakers. So that kind of started, and then like the kids say they like, man, you capping. Like, then kid came, I got some sneakers, gave him some sneakers at the school. They was like, what? Jordan 11s, boom. Gave somebody else some Jordan 10s, boom. And then I just kept doing it. And then when I became a principal, attendance, and especially like during COVID, it was like, how can I keep them engaged? So I started to say, yo, if you come to school 23 days in a row, you're gonna be eligible for one of my exclusive Jordan sneakers.
Mm,
Right. So it just became something, and we don't got no partnership with Jordan brand yet. So Jordan, anybody that connect with Jordan, connect with us, because now we do it across the country. So, but J's for Days is essentially a way for us to create a streak for kids to be able to be engaged academically through learning or through attendance, for them to earn a pair of exclusive Jordan sneakers, man. And it's nothing too fancy about it. Now we got a technology that can automate it, and we distributed over like 400, between 4 to 500 pairs of Jordan sneakers last school year across the country to kids.
Just in 1 year.
This in 1 year, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Y'all hear that, students? Get it together. You never know. Principal Rahh here might be shipping you out some
That's a fact.
J's for school days, meaning if you show up to school at a certain number of times, you get on this platform, all of a sudden you got a pair of sneakers in the mail for you.
That's right.
Well, Principal Rahh, we've talked about resilience. We've talked about financial literacy. We've talked about changing educational ecosystems, and really even the way we think about the relationship between money and our students and community, and really educating our students on what it means to invest in your future. Um, you know, there's uh, there's moments where we think about our future as a dream, and you refer to it as being a dream catcher versus being a dream crusher. So I'm wondering about where you're at and by developing your company, continuing to support young people out there. And one of the things that I practice in my everyday life is, ever since I was little, I like fixing things. So I like pick up a broken TV or something, fix
Right,
it,
right,
or
right, right.
that was just part of the struggle. It's like you don't got something, you go find it, you fix it.
Yeah.
And one other thing I've always worked on is cars. So right now, my kids and I have been working on this '67 Camaro at home,
Nice.
350 engine, just messing around with it. Um, so I'm wondering, like in your life right now, right? You got all these wonderful endeavors going,
Yeah.
and this is a segment I call "Real with Rios,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you could fix anything in your life right now, what would it be?
Fix anything in my life, what would it be? Man, I get this weight off of me, man. I fix this weight, man. I would say, man, but I'll be honest, man. I'm extremely blessed.
Yeah.
I'm somebody, man. God is amazing. Wife, kids, business. I'm a dreamer. I believe that everything happens for a reason. Um, that's a difficult question for me to answer of like what I would fix. Um, I would just say, man, just being able to continue to have platforms that spread the gospel of what we're doing, man,
Mm,
like at scale.
mm,
I feel like there's just, if I will fix one problem, I know I'm gonna bring it back to impact, because that's really my work, man. Of like, I wish today that we can be impacting at least there's close to 15 million kids chronically absent. If I could fix it, I'd be like, yo, fix them back.
yeah.
Um, for my personal life, man, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy. Um, and I would say, if we could fix the school problem, you'd be fixing that problem.
Yeah. 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 The
That's where
impact.
we're at. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I wish I had something else that's a little bit more spicy, but that's all
Hey,
I
that's
got.
good, man. No, just thinking about the way in which sort of we build ourselves up. Like for me, I think it'd be the pressure, right, that I put on myself to
Yeah,
uh, uh, be on solve multiple problems at once,
yeah,
or that to be okay in the moment and not
yeah.
not keep chasing. I think for
I do
me,
I do got one. Now that you say that, if I had one thing that I could fix is more time with my own kids, man.
oh yeah,
You know, um, being in this stage of life, I travel a lot, and you find yourself, doing so much impact work that's part of your calling, that, you just find yourself on the road FaceTiming, you know, missing things. That stuff is tough, man. You know, that stuff is tough. And you know, you only seeing my daughter now, you know, about to go into middle school. It's like, man, you know, for me, you know, I do have those moments where it's like, damn, you know, I miss some moments that you can't get back.
No.
Right? You can't get back, you know.
Priceless.
They're priceless. So I do regret some of those things for sure, man. So like those are the things that I would say, like, I wish I can correct, trying to get that kind of balance better in regards to that. Yep.
Last episode, I mentioned that my daughters are 24-year-old twins, man. And I was on the road a lot when they were growing up. And finding that balance was tough. And I mentioned that the other day on the episode, that one thing I would fix is like making sure I'm checking in on them more.
Yeah.
And so I made it a point the other day to like take an extra day out, because they live in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was like have a nice little dinner with them and check in with them. And then I'm going back this weekend again. Yeah, but you're right. Like, you know, you kind of name it, and then you kind of set yourself accountable for like taking a step.
Yeah.
So, hey, more power to you. They grow up quick, man. I got my 24-year-olds. One of them, she's a data scientist. So, you know, I'll connect you to her, because you might need a data scientist one day.
We do. We do, man. We do.
Well, thank you, Principal Rahh. This conversation reminds us of what the research and our lived experience both confirm. Students don't show up because we pressure them. Students show up because they feel seen, they feel empowered, they feel embraced. If this conversation spoke to you, share it with someone who cares about our young people or students out there. Follow the work at Knowlej, Knowlej, Knowledge, and keep showing up for yourself. This is Dr. Victor Rios. Thank you, Principal Rahh, for being here. See you in the next episode of Sueños to Success. Take care, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.